Hello, folks. Today is Tuesday, December 14th, and with me today is Nicholas Sosiak, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of Cannara Biotech, Inc. Nicholas, welcome and thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So first, we'll just get things kicked off with a little bit of a lighter question. So where are you from and where exactly did you grow up?
From Montreal, grown up in Montreal. So born and raised, worked here all my life. Pretty much went to school here, went to Concordia, went to McGill, did my CPA degree at McGill. I worked for a real estate company, Dundee 360. We did a bunch of projects around Montreal, like the Queen Elizabeth. And then I joined Canara, and again, pretty much built in Quebec, made for Quebec. We had two facilities, one in Farnham, one in Valleyfield. And that's where we are right now.
Cool. And how did you get introduced to Canara?
So, like you know, I'm passionate about cannabis ever since I was, in my teens. Love the industry, love the market, love the product. I've always wanted or saw like the dream of my career being in the cannabis industry. Never thought it was going to happen when it was illegal. But when legalization came, that's when the light bulb started like saying, oh, something's getting real here, right?
Yep.
So I started investing and just learning about the companies and just being like fully vested in the cannabis industry, understanding it, investing in the companies, rooting for certain companies. And then I was even applying to companies across the provinces, and willing to go to BC if I had to. But it was in April 2019 where I had a friend who was working within Canara, started the operation with our CEO Zohar, and then from there, they just got listed, and they didn't really need a finance person before they got listed. But then when they got listed and they had to pump out their first quarter in the public markets, that's when they really needed some extra horsepower, and the offer was made, and I took it, and the rest is history.
Awesome. Yeah, similar to myself, actually. I've been very passionate about MJ, and I was always just looking for a way to get involved in the space. And being somebody who doesn't really have a business background or a financial background like yourself, I love to deal with people, and I'm passionate about the industry as well. So the whole YouTube and just incorporating these interviews, I think, as well, is going to really resonate and go a long way with retail investors as well. So
absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. So exactly, how did you get involved in the MJ space? How did you develop the passion? You said you have a strong passion for it. How did that passion come about?
I think for a lot of us, it starts in your early days in high school, where you try your first cannabis product. I'm also so I tried the first cannabis product in high school and kind of fell in love with it at the first smoke, first glance. But I'm also very motivated. I'm not one of the, I think cannabis is really brings out the traits of somebody, and it has different effects on everyone. And for me, it just worked. It worked because I was a very motivated person. I set challenges for myself all throughout my life. And I basically use cannabis to achieve or reward myself for those achieving those challenges and achieving those successes. And that's just what kept me going and kept me, working 150%. So that's kind of what got me into learning about cannabis. And then just from there, I'm also a person that when I do research or when I find something that I'm passionate about or like something, I go all in and I deep dive and I learn everything about it. So that's kind of where I started just learning about cannabis, the strains, not really on the cultivation aspect, but more so on the strains and the markets in the US, the markets in Canada, how to differentiate, what are people looking for, what are the different terpenes, what are the combinations, what are the breeders, where's all this coming from. And then once you get to the dried flower, then there's a whole nother story of concentrates, right? And all that stuff, which is a whole rabbit hole in itself. But I dove in there, found out the concentrate world, understood the best of the best products, and then basically spent a good chunk of my years learning about this product. And it took me a while to get to that point. And now I'm hoping what I can do here is create those top tier products for the consumers at really good prices, so that they don't have to do all that trial and error and spend a lot of money for bad products.
That's great. Well, love what you're doing, and a lot of what you said reminds me of myself, actually. And I'm just blown away by the level of of professionalism that's in the industry. I think that, it's something that's truly, something to behold. The amount of, just passionate people, and it's truly an industry that, it started off, with such a huge stigma, and now we're at that point where, we're trying to incorporate big business with the cannabis culture, right? So I think, like I said, with more people like yourself and myself and all those passionate people within the industry, I think we're on the right path. Moving
I
on.
think so
So
too, Rod.
absolutely. Well, thanks for the color on that. And we'll move on to a little bit more of some detailed questions here. So like I said, I communicated with our community, the POW Group community, and I had about 30 questions. So just fair warning, I got it down to about 20. So
Thank you for that. Shout out to the community.
Absolutely. Lots of people interested in Cannara. So just to start off, what are your thoughts on Cannara's stock performance over the last 6 months? I know we had a brief discussion about this, but just for our viewers at home, could you provide your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think the cannabis, what we learned in the cannabis markets, the cannabis industry, is that a lot of the times in the past couple of years, or a lot of times the market moves together. So right now, I think we're in a period where there's a lot of investor exhaustion. Investors have, put a lot of money in behind many of these companies, and over the past 2-3 years have been rooting for them, have been throwing more money at them to hopefully get, success. And as we see in the industry in the current state right now, a lot of the companies are not successful and have hurt the investor. So I think there's investor exhaustion. So people are investors are taking a step back to the market and just kind of taking a wait and approach to see. And that's usually typical when we're in a M&A point in time in the industry. And that's exactly where we are. We're seeing M&As left and right. So investors are like, hold on, let's see what's going to happen with all these companies. And then let's relook at them. And I think and coupled with the industry having that, always flowing together, that we're in that period. And unfortunately, Cannara is part of that. So we're dragged down to one of our lower points since our release a year end. But none of that, if you look at the track history of our news and everything, every month that we've been bringing out news during the 6 months, has always been positive news. There's not one thing that we haven't executed in terms of our milestone. So I think it's we don't need to go to the markets for equity to execute our strategy. So and we're also diligent with our costs. Like, do I want to get the Cannara story out? I want to tell the world about the Cannara story, but in order to tell the world, you have to put also dollars and cents to it. And also we're in a market where no one's listening. So, and we're in a time and for Cannara where I have to execute. So for me right now, I'm just, we're just executing, heads down, executing. 6-7 months from now, we're going to be a different company. I think the financial results will speak for themselves. And then once the market picks up and all that, then our story can be told with a microphone or, so that's kind of what we're, there's nothing operationally that justifies the stock price, but there's a lot of famous people that said, your stock price doesn't represent your company, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. So just to sum it up, par for the course, everybody is sort of in the same boat at the moment. And if you actually look back to Cannara's stock performance before all the major tier 1 LPs started to trend off, Cannara actually was performing pretty good up until that point, and then it just got drugged down, right, with the rest of the sector. And I think that has to do a lot with identifying where we are in a cycle, right? That's a big focus in Pursuit of Wealth and POW Group, as well as being able to identify where we are in a cycle, right? Like buying low and selling high, right? It sounds easy to do, but just being able to identify where we are in a cycle can help you, identify where things are going to go at, short term and long term, right? So next, when do you expect the first cultivation from the Valleyfield facility to start?
So to start, it already started. November, third week of November was our first planting. 9,600 plants went to our first room. Each room in Valleyfield is 25,000 square feet. each, and we have 24 rooms, and that's just kind of the first greenhouse. And then we have a rooftop greenhouse, we have a processing center, and then we have expansion for another 600,000 square foot greenhouse. So the first room, why we took a little bit of time, I mean, I think it's a good, we executed within 6 months. What we did, we acquired the facility in June, and we're planting our first harvest in November, but we didn't just take the facility and plant our plants. We're Cannara, you know, our number one goal for us is quality over quantity. Yeah. We rather take the step-by-step approach and ensure quality is there and then ramp up to quantity. So what we did is that we invested, once we acquired the facility, we invested additional money to transform or redesign the rooms into an indoor, kind of mimic the indoor environment. So we invested in blackout curtains where the sun doesn't penetrate through them. We invested in double the amount of LED lighting, and our irrigation system and our trays to match the exact same media that we're using in Farnham. So that we just replicate the same recipe that is successful for us. And right now it's we're probably on our third week of flowering, and the root colonization compared to Farnham is about 20 to 30%. So we're seeing better root colonization, and that just gives us you know, confidence to continue with Valleyfield. We're starting our second room ahead of schedule, so we should be planting that in December, and then the first harvest is going to be sometime in February or January.
That was my next question. Yeah, so sometime in January.
Yeah, end of January, beginning of February, first harvest, and then the product should be packaged on the market, dried by early March.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great. And will the Farnham and Valleyfield facilities be sufficient to achieve your objectives you set out? And are there any other investments planned to your knowledge?
Right. So right now, like we said, we're doing a step-by-step approach, quality over quantity. We're not going out to acquire more facilities and expand and, you know, 10x our size. That's not Cannara. We're executing we set a milestone of opening 6 zones by August 2021. You know, so that's what we think. We're still testing the market, so we don't know how much in Quebec the market wants of Cannara products. Our focus is to provide as much as the market could take in Quebec, and then expand out west and east as well. So, you know, it depends on the market. I think for the next the six rooms are going to cater to Quebec. I don't see how you know, the demand is there. It's showing us it's there. Then we can expand to 24 rooms. The Canadian market is able to definitely handle everything we produce. I mean, if Quebec wanted to handle everything we produce, they could as well. And then we have expansion at the rooftop greenhouse. We have 200,000 square feet of rooftop greenhouse. We have another 600,000 square feet of a phase 2 greenhouse, hybrid greenhouse that we can build. We still have our Farnham facility that's leased out with 476,000. So I think you get the point. We're asset rich. We've secured our assets, and now it's the next couple of years is execution.
Absolutely. And right now you're available in Quebec. It's pretty much selling out all the time. You're in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, correct?
Just Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Quebec. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And are all the same SKUs available in each market?
No, so Ontario, the listing process is a bit different. You have to go through kind of a step-by-step listing process, and because we don't have because our objective is to cater to Quebec and then expand outwards, we don't want to overcommit, because right, the OCS has these red flags, green flags if you under-deliver, over-deliver. So you have to be strategic with what you're doing there. So we got in 6 SKUs. What do we have? Gelato mint in our cans. We have our Orchid CBD cans and pre-rolls. We have our Cuban Links cans that are coming out, and we have Nugs early lemon berry in 3.5 format. So that's out in the OCS. Saskatchewan, they get pretty much a random order every week of assortment of our SKUs. Their process is less rigid, and yeah, that's yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's great. And then in terms of, you know, retrofitting and the new automation at the Valleyfield facility, did you underestimate the amount of automation that would be needed and the cost of transforming that facility from hybrid to fully indoor, and what has the consistency been like?
No, so I don't think we estimated the cost or underestimated the costs. We knew what we were doing. Again, when you think about what's the difference between a hybrid so there's different levels of greenhouses. There's greenhouses, there's hybrid greenhouses, then there's kind of purpose-built hybrid greenhouses, and then indoor. This is not a tomato farm greenhouse that was retrofitted to make cannabis, right? This is not a normal greenhouse where the roof's open. It's all hermetically sealed. So once you take away that, there was no and the engineers and the people that built it had one purpose in mind, to grow cannabis. So once you compare that type of greenhouse to an indoor, you're really just looking at your roof, and you're like, there's a roof here, and that's really the difference between the Farnham and Valleyfield. Like, you look left, right, you have your walls, you have your AC, you have your dehumids, you have your humidifiers, you have your lights, you have your walkway, you have your mediums, you have your fans, you have a hermetically sealed roof that it's see-through, but nothing can come in, nothing can go out. Just block that and let's go. And we're probably one of the first companies to do that. But it's, when you looked at it very logically on paper, and all our experience that what we did on Farnham, it wasn't too far off from what we needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a pretty smooth rollout, and like you said, it was a cannabis facility prior to that.
Yeah, like the facility already came out with the blackout curtain, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We just said, instead of doing that only certain periods of the time, we're just making sure that it's fully blacked out, and we're doubling the lights. So yeah, you have to do an investment in lights, but other than that, everything else is the same as our indoor facility.
Okay, that's great. And with regards to robotics and automation, once again, what has been the biggest challenge for you guys, and what sort of innovations could you see for the industry from an automation perspective going forward?
So again, part of Cannara's approach is, crawl, walk, run. So did we go and invest millions of dollars in automation? No. We wanted to take the cultivation process that we knew worked for the cannabis plant and grow it at scale, and not incorporate automation at that point, because then you're leaving it up to the machines, which is where we want to go. We want to make this a machine where you press the finger and it gets your output quality. But we knew that that's not going to happen, because this is the first time there's no expert out there that can give you the recipe to make automation cannabis work. So we have to make it work. How do you make automation work? You have to understand the basics. You have to understand how to do it manually. Yeah. So we did that manually, and now we're at a point where we're tweaking some things here, but we're also a well-oiled machine that we don't have to run to automation right now, right? Eventually, yeah, if we want to reduce costs, but right now we're focused on Valleyfield. It's about SOPs. It's about training your workforce. It's about them being happy, following process, reporting to you all of the things that they see that might go wrong, which automation can't help, and executing. So is it costing us a little bit more? Yes, but the investment, I think, right now it would hurt us to do the transition right now, get both facilities operationally manually with some sort of automation. I think you saw the video in Valleyfield where you press a button and the tables move from left and right. In that scale, you have to, because then it just becomes too cumbersome. But our irrigation is automated, our HVAC, our dehumans, everything's automated, but there's always somebody behind that. So it's not truly 100% AI automated.
Right. That's great. Yeah. And like you said, you went through the manual process, you got the experience, and you're just, starting low, going, one step at a time type of thing. And then as you come across any improvements, you'll add them at a later date, essentially, right?
You got it. Yeah.
And then in terms of rarity, I know, the genetics, and I think you guys use Ethos Genetics to source some of your different strains, but and then obviously you cross those and then make them unique. But in terms of rarity, do you feel this is paramount at Cannara? And if so, how do you communicate that rarity to both new and experienced consumers?
Right. So I'll just correct you there. In terms of breeding, we don't do breeding. So that's when you cross your own genetics, you would have to breed a male and a female plant and do that. We're not at that point yet. Breeding, usually you have to do it outside of a cannabis cultivation facility, because don't want any males in your cannabis facility. So we're not at that point, but we do have a bank. So part of Health Canada's legislation provided an amnesty period where you can bring in from the gray market a certain amount of genetics. And, we went kind of strain hunting at that point and brought in, 300 to 500 different genetics that are some on the market and some not. But where I think and I do appreciate rarity. I think it's the cannabis industry is all about genetics. It revolves around genetics. And it's not like people will find the genetic that they like, but the way I see the cannabis industry is that it's not like the alcohol industry where you go, you get your scotch and you're going to drink that same scotch over and over again because that's your favorite. In cannabis, there's so many arrays and terpenes and different flavors and combinations. The amount of combinations and flavor profiles and look profiles is countless, right? So what that leads to in the consumer is that they want to explore, and also it comes with smoking cannabis. You're high, you want to try, you want to do different things, right? So it's naturally in there. So where I've narrowed that aspect is what consumers want is a brand, is a home, is a place where they can go and experience all these different things and on rotation and all that, and not have to guess about quality of the product and not have to be like, okay, is this a good quality? Is this, because you see it in the black market's been the same thing. It's some people have good quality, you buy it, next time it's not. And we've seen it in the legal market. So it's been a constant replication. So our goal is really to create 3 brands. We don't differentiate between the quality of our brands. Everything's hand trimmed, hand dried, cultivated with love across Nugs, Orchid, CBD, and Tribal. And then from there, we think about the consumers, and then we're trying to build a genetic library, right? So in Tribal, my goal is to have 8 to 10 genetics. Over the next several years as we pheno hunt, because I'm sure pheno hunting is not one day and I have a new genetic. It's a year before I have a new genetic, because we have to test it, do it, grow it, cultivate it in mass. And if we're trying to be consistent and not offer quality over quantity, it's a year process for us. So like the home for Tribal is to have 8 to 10 different genetics, and we've narrowed it down so you have kind of like the main terpene profiles, the main types, indica, sativa, hybrid, this, so one's fruity, one's candy, one's lemon, one's this, one's that, and then I can genetic rotate within those types of categories. So when you go to Tribal, you always have that home to explore different genetics. So I think that's a rarity is up of mind. I think when we go to pheno hunt, that's where, although it's not our own typical genetics, when we go to pheno hunt, we're not grabbing the pink kush seed. I'm not grabbing the king tut seed. I'm not grabbing my AK-47 seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm grabbing you said early lemon berry, that's an ethos genetic. I have gelato mint, that's exotics genetic. So we have pretty much all of the breeders across Europe, US, and Canada. We have those seeds that will allow us to continue bringing new genetics to market and then eventually breed those and crossbreed. So that's our genetic strategy.
That's great. No, thank you for that. I've been following Colin at Ethos Genetics for a while now, and I've actually purchased some of their seeds from them, and it's fantastic. And that was one of the things that caught me, that piqued my interest with Cannara, was the fact that that high end type of flower, and like you say, having that optionality, and with regards to consumers, always introducing something new. People tend to develop a tolerance to certain strains and that type of thing too. So I think that's a great strategy that you guys are focusing on. And with regards to,
I think Ethos does our early lemon berry. We have a couple other Ethos genetics, but like I said, we really go with into the vault, not with the breeder in mind, because breeder, like you said, represents quality. It's a starting point, but then we really, the rarity of the genetic, the uniqueness, the terp profile, the THC, the terpenes. We get like last pheno hunt was 15 genetics, 20 seeds each. So you can do the math. That goes into our room. And then there's not just one plant per genetic. You have 10 to 15 to 20 plants per genetic. So now you have all these 10, 15 different genetics, 15 different phenos of each genetic. Now you have to go through all of those. And then once you find your 10 that you like, then you have to redo the process, narrow it down to 3, 2, and then finally go one and make it commercial.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot more to it than what meets the eye, both, from an operational standpoint and a regulatory standpoint, right?
Absolutely. But it's fun.
And absolutely. And with respect to ESG being a major focus today, with major countries and companies, what are your thoughts for greenhouse gas emissions in the cannabis industry and the role of carbon offsets and sustainable packaging?
It's definitely something that we have in mind. It's not, again, we're trying to execute our strategy for our shareholders. I think, always environmental, social, any type of corporate governance like that is something that companies like ourselves that are emitting these greenhouse gases should be aware of. We are aware of, but I think that's going to be our stage 2. It's really we're really focused on making sure that our goals, we invested a lot of time and money and resources. Clients are waiting for the product. Employers are working hard. So it's definitely something that's, we're cautious and we don't try to overextend what we're doing to the environment. But as we build our company and as we get larger and our footprint becomes larger, that's something that we'll look into.
Right. Yeah, and generally that's something that's secondary, right? It's something that you strive towards as you as you ramp up in profitability and that type of thing. And I know you guys have been focusing on the consumer a lot too with the canister packaging, right? The old school packaging. So obviously trying to please consumers there is seems like it's a big focus of yours as well, right?
Absolutely. Consumers, we're trying to build a company for the consumers, right? So from the terpenes that we put on to the harvest date, to the genetics, to the transparency, any investor, any person can give me a call. My phone number is anywhere. It's just, we're very transparent because we want as much support to build something for everyone, right? For the consumers that ourselves, all the employees in the company also want to enjoy as, workers and consumers themselves too.
Right. Exactly. And then in terms of electricity costs, that's obviously a big advantage that you guys have in being so cheap in Quebec. Some questions we had surrounding that. Why isn't everyone producing in Quebec, in your opinion? And is there a catch in terms of regulation and logistics? I know regulation, there's a lot of red tape, a lot more red tape in the Quebec market. So is that sort of a catch-22 in your opinion, or why do you think there isn't more companies producing in Quebec?
Hopefully because hopefully they're aware and they saw the opportunity. But my guess, or what I think it is definitely the language barriers and the barriers to entry. Quebec is a whole different province, whole different customer, whole different clientele, way of doing business. For companies that are not built into Quebec to come into Quebec and understand the taxation, the business rules, all that, plus it's in French and everything is very forced in French. Sometimes Right. They don't provide English documents for communication to the government that then you have to hire, then you have to trust that person, then you're building it. And all these companies, went into other provinces. We're starting to see the shift now. Pure Sun Farms acquired Rose Life Science. People want Quebec because it's one of the second largest market, and the barriers to entry are high. And the SQDC has made it to say that they want Quebec grown product, right? And they want to, and that's the nature of Quebec, how we do business, right? So you have a lot of companies trying to get in here by acquisition. Mm-hmm. But the biggest barrier is language, and then the second one, or if not the first one, is also a government agency called the AMP, Autorité du Marché Public Financier. Okay. That body governs or does checks, audits, provides certifications to company to do business with the government. Right. Since SQDC's government, AMP has to do with their audit, their deep dive into you. That's a whole process in itself. If your company has been dealing, has prior histories of anything, or you personally have prior histories of anything, that's an automatic bar. and people can't get in. And with the cannabis industries, sometimes they had that. So I think potentially that's why we only see about 30 under 40 producers here in Quebec, and really none of them are of significant scale.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, like to your point, Quebec has its own revenue agency as well, right? Just as an example, and
exactly. So the whole Quebec, taxation, sales tax, income tax, it's a whole different ballgame. Right?
Yeah. And I say the phrase very often, a lot of people are comparing apples to oranges, right? That it's not as simple as you think. And, just from a regulatory standpoint alone, right, has so many challenges and hurdles. But with that being said, right, if you can navigate that red tape and that, that regulatory, those waters, right, you have a huge advantage, right, with regards to electricity costs being so cheap, and then, the population and, not that much competition in the Quebec market because of those challenges that it poses, right?
And I think that's what we saw, and that's why we built Cannara in Quebec.
Absolutely. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. And now switching gears a little bit over to some financials. Any idea why your revenue dropped from 7.2 million to 6.2 million, even though sales were up?
So sales were up in terms of retail, you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a transition from wholesale. So in Q2, we got our license in February. So that was end of Q2 2021 where we got the license. We had wholesale agreements prior to getting that, because we didn't know when we were going to get our retail license and when we were going to be able to sell in SQDC. So we had some supply contracts that we were fulfilling, and that increased our sales in Q2 and into Q3, and then towards the end of Q3, that's when we terminated the wholesales to redirect everything to the retail channel. Gotcha. So then there was a little timing difference coming in and into Q4, and you'll see it in Q1 2020.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And then in terms of number crunching, could you provide any insight into potential margins or cost per gram improvements with the new operations in the new facility?
Sure. Right now, I mean, from our last financials, you can see that we're hitting a gross margin of anywhere between 50 and 60%, if you're including lease revenues. I think that's, if you do a comparative against the industry, that's, it's up there in terms of gross margins, positive gross margins. A lot of companies are still operating at negative gross margins. That's our Farnham facility. That's a facility that's, has all of the infrastructure to run a cannabis company. So QA departments, procurement, supply, packaging, it's really its own hub, right? Mm-hmm. As we build Valleyfield, so as we go into next year, or call it from my August 2021, so as we go into 2022, the same effect of what we saw kind of in 2021, where there's 6 months of burdening costs and operational costs without any revenues, is going to get replicated, right? Because I'm only going to get my first harvest in February. So that means there's 6 months of operational costs from Valleyfield that I have to incur while setting that up. And then in Q3, Q4 of 2022 is when the fruits of our labor will generate. So I can't tell you in terms of cost improvements or anything like that. We're just starting. All our budgets is assuming, what we can do with Farnham, we can do in Valleyfield. But that's being conservative, because Valleyfield is a bigger scale. Valleyfield doesn't have all the QA, all the warehousing, all the processing as Farnham does. So there's definitely going to be cost savings involved. I can't tell you what the amount is, but what I could say is that our gross margin will go down for the next 2 quarters as we take on Valleyfield and we operational Valleyfield. But as soon as we get through that, it should come back to and we're already at a 50 to 60% gross margin, which I think is one of the few in the industry.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, so that's fine. You can't provide an exact number or anything like that with regard. You have your assumptions, and you'll just have to take a wait and see approach. But with your forecasting, you're expecting an improvement for sure, right? So, and then what is your view on the competition currently in the Canadian recreational market? Do you believe that more consolidation is forthcoming? Do you think it's needed?
I think it's needed. I think there's still a lot of hopefully between what I'd like to see is between smaller players rather than the large players acquiring each other.
I agree.
And I'm not looking out for I mean, like I'm more looking out for the consumers and hopefully what the end market and the industry is going to be. You know, I hope to have some mid-scale. Like right now, I see like there's only a few Cannaras kind of say like where we're in the mid-scale, where we're successful, we're in the mid-scale and we're in that branch. Then you have the large companies which are very having a tough time to provide the quality of product and provide, you know, profit to the investors or shareholder return.
Yeah.
And then you have the really small micros and the small companies that are just surviving. They have great product. Consumers like their branding. They've invested it. It's the passion that comes out, but you know, they're limited to their 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 square footer, right? And they don't banks are not going to invest to say, okay, you want to open another building? Here's my investors are not going to invest. Here's another money. So hopefully maybe these smaller guys can come together and say, let's join forces and let's build one brand together and then, you know, pull the capital together to buy another facility, someone that's maybe going bankrupt. And then, you know, you can start building a smaller company to a mid-size and hopefully maybe a large scale size. And that's just overall better product for the consumers.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for the market. You raised some good points. I agree. And you pretty much answered, I think, my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. So with so many licensed producers and competition currently in the Canadian market, how has Cannara been comparing in regards to market share? And what are you guys doing to combat the competition?
What we're doing, we're not really doing anything to combat the competition other than doing doing Cannara, which is focus on quality product, quads A, never compromise quality over quantity, hang dries, you know, hand trimmed, you know, premium products that people want. Every product that goes out, you know, we take our time on packaging. You know, we sit down, we brainstorm. None of our products is the typical, you know, cannabis product. Like every packaging is thought out from A to Z. It takes a while to do that. But we're not rushing. Like we could have rushed once we got our Cannabis 2.0 products. We could have rushed all kinds of, you know, products to market. But, you know, I think, again, we're just keeping Cannara and focusing on quality. And that's really what we're doing in terms of competition. There's some really good players in Quebec. You know, they're cultivating, they're getting good product out there, and you know, I'm happy for them. I want them to succeed. I think there's room for a lot of people. I can't really give market share numbers as it's not public, but you know, I think we're at a pretty good market share. We're selling everything that we produce. So unfortunately, we can't grab more market share because we don't have enough product to produce, and that's really where the Valleyfield strategic decision came in place, and that's the number one problem that we're having, and that's how we solve it.
Yeah, so that's a bottleneck that you're working on, and obviously Valleyfield is part of that strategy too, right? And I mentioned
it is the strategy.
It is the strategy, yeah. And I brought it up just because I've heard, you know, other CEOs or other companies, you know, they're buying other LPs flower and they're doing some quality control tests on it and all that stuff. That's not something you guys do, or like
you buy other people's flower and sell it under our brands.
You just basically head down focusing on.
We could. Again, that's another strategy we could have implemented, but you know, what that does is that's a short-term problem, a short-term solution, right? I have to rely then on that supplier to cater to my customers. I'm not doing it myself. So it might be I might be able to get a couple more cans out there this week, but next week when he doesn't have, or it's a different product, we really want to control the vertical, and that's what we've built in that. And again, we're in a crawl, walk, run. Our brands are babies. That's like one thing that they understand. Our Tribal, our Nugs, and our Orchid. If we can have little children right here running around, like that's what they are to us. And and we take care of them. Like we don't want to just throw anything at them to the consumer. So we really take care of them and want to make sure that they're like when someone sees Nugs Tribal and it's just good thoughts, right? It's just like, that's a good company, that's a good brand, and they have good quality products. There's no bad experience. And sometimes there is some bad experiences. It's a company we're growing, we're building, and that's where the transparency in us comes to hopefully show that we're transparent, we're doing our best as possible. We're open to feedback. We'll implement the feedback. We'll respond. We'll keep you in the loop, and let's just continue executing together.
Absolutely. And then in terms of when you go to introduce new strains, that type of thing, do you guys conduct different studies like surveys, or is that your conviction is high enough that you're confident releasing?
Yeah, so it's usually I usually start the process. So I usually go in our vault, and when it's pheno hunt time, I'll go in and I'll take 10 different genetics based on the terp profiles that I want to add to tribal orchid or nugs. And then from there, the team grows it out. We get our first harvest. We get all these phenotypes per genetic. And then we do some R&D testing where a lot of them are eliminated as you go, depending on yield. If it's a great smoking plant, but it yields 2 grams a plant, it's just not going to work, right? So there's some preliminary steps that get, that get run through, and then we end up with a certain batch, and then we smoke it, we visually inspect it, we do our lab tests, we do our, it's usually internally, so a group of guys that are very passionate about the product, and once we've narrowed it down, we make the decision, we decide which brand it's going to go into, and
well, if you ever release it. If you ever need some external input, just let me know.
Exactly. We'll call you.
Yeah, you have my number, so. And last question with regards to competition and just overall consolidation, would you say that Cannara is a potential buyout target, and is that something that you guys would be open to?
I definitely think we're a buyout target. I mean, like you said, the assets in Quebec, especially in cannabis, are very lucrative. There's a golden opportunity, especially also Quebec. The government, wants it, but I mean, I'm passionate. I'm growing old in this company, so you're gonna have to pry me from my seat to get me out of here. Yep. And our CEO is the same way. Like our CEO is special. He built this company without really knowing cannabis in the industry. He just saw the opportunity, and he had a lot of connections to execute the idea. But the day that we got cannabis plants in our facility in our Farnham, like he changed. Like he loved it. Like not in terms of smoking, and he still doesn't smoke to this day. But he loved, he had the green thumb, and we never touched plants before, but he just looked at it, understood it. He wanted to know why it grew, how it grew, why does it have these terpenes, why does it have this, what's different about it. He did that, and he also building his business around that. So he was like doubly vested into enjoying it as a passion, and also making sure that it was successful. So he was, he's still there 7 days a week, both facilities pretty much all day, and there's not many CEOs that are at the cultivation facility. He's at the cultivation facility, Valleyfield. The whole procedure was set up by him, led by him, because he knows exactly what to do. He knows now he's probably grown more cannabis than your average black market cannabis producer. This is his 70th grow of 2,000 square foot grow, right? So he's gained a lot of experience over this past years that he's been at Canara. He's found a passion for it, and now he's just on a mission to grow the best cannabis he can. And then I come in with the genetics, and I say, try this one, this is the good one. And then he makes great cannabis, and it works perfect for the brands, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I'll have to get him on for an interview at some point, hopefully. And I'm not sure if you're able to answer this or not, but have you had any phone calls from any other LPs or any other, competition in the industry about a potential buyout or consolidation?
No, I can't answer that, but yeah, I mean, we're not looking to sell ourselves. We have such a great asset. I think we have the management team to execute. It would hurt, I think, the management team to see what we're building not get executed to what we think and what we hope to do. We're vested. So I think like Cannara really has the management team it needs to execute its strategy, and we're all vested in it. We're all passionate about it, and we're ready to take it to the many chapters. So it's, you know.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot of aspirations, and like you say, Valleyfield is the new strategy to ramp up production. You just started cultivation, haven't even done your first harvest yet. So, you know, you'd sort of be, in my opinion, you'd be selling yourself short, right, if you were to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's exactly execution of Valleyfield, expansion of Canadian market. You know, we have the team to go to the US market too.
Oh, really?
We have the team to build, you know, to get us EU GMP to sell to Europe.
Yeah.
So we have the resources, the ability, the strategy to execute all these. And, you know, as long as the shareholders and directors are happy with what we're doing and the milestones that we're achieving, then, you know,
Yeah.
we're not really looking to sell out.
That's exciting. Well, full disclosure, I am an investor for anybody watching. And yeah, I brought that up just because I get excited just thinking about, you know, what's going to happen when you open up different, you know, markets like the British Columbia market or Alberta market. I'm currently in Alberta. I'm from Prince Edward Island, the East Coast, but I view Alberta as, you know, light years ahead right now than the rest of the market from a, you know, from a product standpoint, from a pricing standpoint. And, you know, retail stores, they were, you know, one of the leaders in that regard as well. And, you know, just the amount of, you know, support and traction that we've seen in the Albertan market alone is just, it's got me excited. I can't wait till you guys have that distribution agreement set in place with those markets.
Yeah, we'll be there soon.
So where do you see Cannara in 1 to 3 years from now in terms of growth? Do you intend to maintain your, you know, craft designation and the continuous rotation of genetics?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to change. We're not going to hinder quality. Like I said before, quality over quantity. We're not going to hinder quality. We're continuing producing what we're doing. Next 1 to 3 years is we have enough execution work to take us, you know, 1 to 2 years to get those 24 rooms up and running, to pierce the Ontario market, to go into Saskatchewan, to go into Alberta, to go into BC. So we have a good while of work ahead of us to do and build the company. Everything's laid out in place for us to just execute. So I just keep saying it, it's execute, but we like I said, we have the plan for the next 2 years to do everything. We don't have to go out to markets. We don't have to hire different people other than building the team, you know, under us and continuing executing. Yep, it's okay, really cool. Just heads down and just look up one day and see the fruits of our labor.
Absolutely. And then on to regulation. How do you feel about the Canadian government? There's, you know, a lot of just complaints and overall dissatisfaction from consumers, you know, with regards to limitations on how much you can purchase in one transaction, you know, how many different, you know, the advertising and marketing of different, you know, restrictions and things like that of that nature. Do you expect the Canadian government to potentially ease those restrictions into 2022 even? Is that something that you see some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak?
2022, I think, is too early. Potentially, maybe some reform in 2023 and on. I think 2021, they're still going through M&As. Health Canada is still issuing licenses. They're doing their audits. They're not looking at, you know, the marketing regulations, the THC regulations, the edible regulations. Okay. I know there's organizations, you know, pushing against that, trying to push for change. But that's going to take, you know, I think a couple of years, if not. And more so in Quebec. I mean, we have another layer, right? We have the federal laws, and then we have these additional rules that bar us from doing a bunch of things that other cannabis companies are able to do, right? So, not in Quebec. So we're part of, you know, the movement. We'd like to see some reforms, some changes. And that's pretty much it. I don't see edibles changing for a while. Edibles and beverages, I think the industry is still learning about that. So I don't think that regulation is going to change. In Quebec, we have a 30% limit and a no vape. Hopefully that's going to change, but that's going to have, you know, the parties are going to have to change. There's going to have to be some pushback. That's going to be another 2 years or something like that. So I think it's still way back.
Longer term horizon, and just be patient, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of, and again, on to your point with regards to your products and SKUs that you have available, it sort of fits in within your strategy anyway, right? You guys probably don't mind waiting a year or two for the edible or for the vapes and things like that, right? Why you can kind of focus on your other categories that you currently have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, edibles and beverages, the only reason why Cannara is not playing in it is because of the 10 milligrams. I'm a firm believer that, it's just not worth our time to go into that market. Once they open the rules, then definitely Cannara will play with premium quality products. In vapes, definitely something I would want to bring to the market. My goal is to bring live resin and live rosin vapes. Not distillate. Distillate's been saturated in the market. No blends of distillate and vapes and all that stuff. So true single sourced from our farm to the vape cartridge is our goal. Fortunate, unfortunate, the rest of Canada will get it. Unfortunately, Quebec will have to change their policy before we're able to sell it. But definitely in our plans for 2022 is BHO, butane hash oil, and making vape cartridges.
Excellent. That's great. And then in terms of working with the SQDC, you mentioned it briefly, and the OCS, in which government is the most transparent and gives the best insights in your opinion?
Sorry, the insights into the product or into the market?
Into both, yeah. I guess into the industry or into any product categories specifically. I guess which one has been the most, the best to work with, I guess.
Well, that's multiple questions there. Best to work with, definitely not the same as the one that provides the most information, but no, best to work with for us. I mean, it's our hometown, Quebec SQDC. That's we're built for Quebec, made for Quebec, and really trying to cater to SQDC. So we listen to all their feedback. We work with them, they work with us. If we have a new product launch, they get it out to the market. They support us. We're a big player in Quebec, so they need, I think they enjoy our products. So that's, I love working with Quebec. It's great. OCS is a bit of a challenge in terms of getting products. You always have to, think 3 months, 4 months in advance, get the paperwork, and then it might not get listed. There's like kind of a process that you go, and there's a waiting period time. And then once they give you the green light, then it's go, go, go. There's quite a few people at OCS, so contact wise is hard to get to or figure out where to, but they're doing a great job. I mean, it's a totally different kind of agency, I find. Quebec, like Quebec's like the SAQ, which is focused on getting information to the consumers, getting good getting product to the shelf in very informational way. And OCS, they have they pump it. They have their strategies. They have their marketing. They get clever in their in how they segregate their websites, the retail channels. I mean, it's an experience. I go to Ontario, and I feel like I'm 20 years back in SQDC. So it's a different style. For business, definitely Quebec. I like it, but for the vibe and the environment, definitely on OCS. And Saskatchewan is more of kind of like they'll take whatever you can give them.
Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, that's fantastic. That's pretty much exactly what I was looking for. And we've got so many different questions coming in, and I'll try to wrap things up. But you've mentioned this earlier with regards to Rose Life Science. How do you feel about the ex-director of that company being an interim president of the SQDC? Before Jacques took over, Rose signed the Tilray deal prior to Jacques taking over Paul Ferraro's position as well. So are you able to give some thoughts or your opinion on that?
Yeah, I really don't get into, I'm not a politics man. I don't get into politics. I try to keep politics out of my life. Really, I do. I'm very transparent. I don't understand politics. I'm just like, just come to the table, tell me what you want. I'll give you what you want, or tell me what I want. So look, I mean, he's at the seat. I have no repercussions from it. I haven't seen anything. So look, until it affects me directly, then I'll figure what, I'll address the problem. But
I respect
don't really
that.
have any comment on.
So you're indifferent, really? And then on the topic of employment, why would someone want to work for Cannara or recommend it to others in their network, in your opinion?
I think we're onto something, right? I think whoever's part of the team, whoever's part of the organization, definitely sees what we're building is going to be part of something what we hope to be great and hope to be nationwide, worldwide, eventually. We're a bunch of passionate people. We're very transparent. We have good working conditions. We have great products. We provide benefits. We provide cannabis at cost. And it's just like teams, we're all rowing in the same direction. So it's, if you want to be part of a good vibe and everyone's just trucking to get to products on the shelf that's quality, and everyone's excited when they go on social media and they see the feedback that our products are doing good. That's what it is. Just being part of the Cannara family. We show lots of love to our employees and to our customers, and that's why I would join, or that's why I joined.
Absolutely. And do you guys do like stock options, that type of thing, as a form of compensation?
Depends on the role.
On the role.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then just finishing things off again here, is obviously, I think it is, I think I know the answer to this question, but is communication with retail investors a priority for Cannara?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like I said before, it's just a matter of cost versus benefit at this point. Like I'm open to, I'm trying to get our message out. We're pushing nothing but positive press releases. I'm available at either emails or phone calls. We do some kind of earned media, the stock house, and we get some of our press releases and news outlets there. I'm not sure if you saw, but we got around the piece from Canaccord, which is a 19-page report on Cannara and kind of what we were working on. So I think it's definitely where retail investors are, institutional investors, brokers, family offices. They're all people that I want to engage with. It's just a matter of time, execution, and just the market's changing. I think is the biggest change right now. Is people, I don't want to invest shareholders' money
For sure.
where I'm not confident to see a tangible return. I think people are just, especially in December, January, people are not really investing in stocks, taking a break back. We see, I've been monitoring the industry since its inception, so I know when we're in that trend and when we start rowing in that same direction, and that's when I think we'll be able to get the message behind new eyeballs.
Yep.
But for now, our current existing eyeballs, our current investors, I'm available. Call me anytime, and I'll answer any of your questions.
Absolutely. And I can echo that, right? Just from my experience, I can attest to you guys have been great. I even got David reached out to me, your marketing lead marketer. And like I said, you guys have always been very, responsive and quick to respond. So I can definitely attest to that. So as we wrap up, what is your current thoughts on the cannabis market landscape? And do you believe that 2022 will be more favorable for the space?
I think 2022 is going to do great things for certain LPs and do great things for the consumers. We saw in the last 6 months, really the product offering has skyrocketed, right, in terms of quality, and pricing has started to align and give good value to the consumers. So I think we're going to continue seeing that. We're going to see some mergers and acquisitions, some products getting delisted, and hopefully it's the ones that are not performing well. Hopefully the ones that are performing well are able to increase their supply, like ourselves. So in 6 months, we'll be able to significantly increase our supply, and that's what I think a lot of consumers and the industry, I think, are going to benefit in 2022. There's going to be a lot of good news.
Absolutely. Well, any other parting words for our viewers listening in?
No, I just thank whoever's invested in Cannara and following our story. Whoever hasn't invested, just continually following management's updates. We release press releases. We're very transparent about our operation. We're here to build the best cannabis company in Canada. We have the assets behind us. We have a management team as well in place, and we're just really on a mission to bring the best cannabis to the consumers and best derivative products as well. So I thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for your time and having me online, Rod.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. And that concludes today's interview. Thanks again for doing this, Nicholas. It was a lot of fun, and looking forward to speaking with you again in the future. And maybe we can get the CEO on for an interview as well at some point in the near future.
We'll try. Take care, Rod.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too.